Okay, streets, lights, properties, and trees. Mike.
The council has before it this evening a memorandum to council president on the subject of an emergency generator for the police department. For the folks at home in the record, this is an issue which has come up previously in 2010 and in fact has been a somewhat of a long-standing need for the police department to have an emergency generator which would be fueled by natural gas and would be available in the event that there is a power interruption for the police department. It would allow the operations to continue there and to function, including the computers, the electricity, and all the critical elements that would run that building. Because the initial investigation and one proposal indicated that the cost of this particular equipment and installation would exceed $4,000, we are bound to then solicit and document three proposals, which is to say that the equipment and the work will have a cost between $4,000 and $10,000. And what council has before it this evening, fortunately, is three proposals obtained from contractors well known to us, one from HEP Electric, one from Newtown Mechanical, and one from Not Electric. I want to point out again, more so for the record, that the three are comparable in the quote that was given for a so-called Generac unit. However, the Not Electric also had an alternate piece of equipment which is made by Briggs & Stratton. That information is included with your packet. Nevertheless, the three proposals or three quotations obtained are HEP Electric in the amount of $6,125, Newtown Mechanical in the amount of $5,700, and Not Electric for the same Generac unit in the amount of $4,700. Here I'll point out that separately broken out was the gas hookup for $250. So that total cost for the same unit is $4,700. The Not Electric proposal also includes the alternate Briggs & Stratton unit. With installation, that would be $4,334. And if council is of a mind, then this could be accepted by way of one of the proposals this evening.
Mike, did you have any preference based on your interactions with the contractors and their proposals?
I think all three contractors are, as I said in the memo, extremely well known to us. They're all fine at their field of endeavor, their work, and all would do a good job. As I say, I pointed out the fact that the same unit was priced by them, and therefore, if we're looking for some kind of baseline reference, then certainly it's with that fact. And we are fortunate in having three quotations which have that same unit. I think if we had three separate units, it might be a little more of a jump ball, and certainly beyond my pay grade to distinguish them. But fortunately, we have the same generator priced by each. But again, I spoke with each of them. They each looked at it, and what you're looking at this evening with the price is an all-inclusive price for the work to be done. Installation of the unit and hookup, and then showing the police department staff how to use it in the event it is needed. So that said, it's pretty clear the lowest quotation of the three is Not Electric for $4,700 installed for the Generac unit.
Excuse me, and was there any preference by Mr. Knott between the Generac and the Briggs & Stratton unit?
No, he posed it as an alternative, and I included the materials he provided. And I guess the short answer to your question is he didn't express a great preference for Briggs & Stratton over Generac, but just provided the alternative and therefore an alternative quote. In truth, it is a little less expensive than a Generac, but again, all three quotations involve the Generac system.
Mike, isn't Newtown Mechanical the reconstituted Tomlinson organization who did the original work over at the police building? Would it make, if it is, would it make sense for us to use someone who's already familiar with the mechanicals in the building?
Your first question, I don't know. That goes well back before.
It is Brian Tomlinson, right?
Yes, it's right.
Brian Tomlinson did the original work there.
And then if that's the case, when the building was originally worked on, then yes, that would be the same gentleman. He was very responsive, very helpful
I mean, is there an advantage to using someone who's already familiar with our structure?
Well, I have to say, and this kind of picks up on what Julia just asked, I think all three showed an immediate grasp of the work to be done. We're familiar with the unit, familiar with the hookup, and I did not communicate to any one of them what the others were providing. We're not in a formal bid process, but nevertheless, I kept those lines of communication separate so that whatever was quoted would be without any reference to anyone else who was bidding. So what you see here is what we get. And again, I think unless there's some factor such as you're suggesting from history, then these things are usually driven by the least expensive if everything else is pretty much equal. But if there's someone with more expertise to bring to this, feel free.
Well, and this is a unit that's being put in outside and with hookups provided to the power that's inside. Is that
Correct.
Yeah.
My question is, I think, a little more fundamental. Do we really think we need this? It feels like a luxury to me. And you know, we just went through a budget process and talked about trying to save as much money as possible. And do we need to do this now, or can we do this when time's a little bit better? Is sort of my overall question. And if you know if there's a overriding public safety issue or liability issue, then I'm just having a little bit of trouble since we existed for I don't know how many years in that building without it, that we're all of a sudden doing it in 2011.
Let me try and address that. I've spoken with the chief about it. I think others on council have too. And I think he has expressed a longstanding concern that there may be a significant power interruption, which unfortunately in the year 2011 could cause the kind of system interruption which wasn't quite as significant even 10 years ago. The police, and again, Dennis or someone else may be more familiar than I, but the police rely on the computers literally to generate data, to process people who are brought in, and to communicate. And if that power interruption exists for any period of time, then that can interrupt the operations of the police department. I think there's also the question of some element of luck that we've had so far with power interruptions. And you're right, we haven't had it. But in speaking with the chief about it and speaking with the contractors who also have installed a lot of these in similar situations, I think the sense is that it's rather like a parachute. And if you need it, you really need it. You may not need it at all. We may go another year, we may go 2 years, or we could go another 2 weeks. But if the power interruption occurs, particularly in the wintertime, then what it could do in terms of logistical problems for the police department would be very troublesome. So I share with you the concern for the cost, really not knowing what these things do cost until we got the quotes. But again, it's pretty clear, especially with the sophistication of communications, that that alone would probably justify doing this. The other thing I'll mention, and the police made quite clear, was that we do have a lockup facility in the police department in the event that there were to be a power interruption with someone in custody. We have a legal responsibility, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, to whoever would be in the charge of the police department. So a power interruption might then pose some challenges to having that individual, particularly if it's someone there's a particular concern about, transferring that person to a facility that does have power. So that in and of itself might, as a result, cause a consequence of increased manpower costs, or at least some, dare I say, some risk to our officers who have to then transport a prisoner or prisoners to another location because they're without power. So I'm not trying to make the case for this beyond what I've been told. And as I say, in speaking with the three contractors here, they made pretty clear that these are fairly standard for critical operations for local government and certainly businesses too.
Thanks, Mike. That helps. And I guess a question for the mayor and the police committee. Has this been discussed within the police committee, and what are your views on it?
Yeah, Gerard, this was obviously prompted by an outage which we had when some of the old electrical infrastructure that's around town, and in particular a big unit on a pole, went out, and the police department were without power for approximately 4 to 6 hours, and everything was pretty much shut down. So I believe after that I certainly had discussion with the chief and instigated Brian Tomlinson to come out and Danny Knott to come out and look at it and see what they could do, hoping that there was some lower cost option available. But this really has to be done properly, and the cost reflects it. So I don't know if that answered your question. We did have some discussion, I believe, at the police committee.
Yeah, the chief has brought it up.
Yeah.
I think several times at the monthly police committee meeting as a need.
I think the issue, too, is that the backup battery for his computer only lasts for a couple hours, right? So just to do that, and if you also have to have light and heat for someone in custody, I think that was his bigger issue, was if he had someone in custody, what would he do? And we did look into the possibility of trying to tap off the generator from the fire company, and that option was not really available to us. Is that correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
So we did look for something less. So I think the concern was mostly for if you have someone in custody, if you need to maintain communications and so on, that the battery life of the backup batteries were just not enough.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, this isn't a luxury. This is
Well, we've invested money over the last several years in the Cody system. We now have the cameras in the police station. I don't think there's any backup to the cameras. We lose power, the cameras go down. So I think there's some precedent-setting activities over the last several years that would warrant this. I mean, we did put just a lump sum in the expense budget for capital expenditures for the police department. This will just go against that, and we'll have to deal with anything else that may come up later on in the year. But I think we should go forward with it.
okay.
Do you want to make a motion, Mike?
Is there anyone else have a question or a point on this? My inclination would be to frankly go with the lowest bid, because there is a comparable unit which is quoted for all three. So I would make the motion to accept a proposal of Not Electric, dated December 28th, 2010, for an emergency generator for the police department in the total amount of $4,700.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do you have anything else under streets, lights, properties, Mike? I take that as a no.
It's having a brain freeze moment. No, just to mention, and it's relatively minor in some ways, but not in others, that and I meant to do this at a prior meeting, that the split rail fence down at Newtown Commons was replaced, I believe, actually in late November. And if you have a chance to take a look at it, the fence that had been there was literally falling down, and it has been replaced. And I'll just mention that more so for the record and the public if they notice it.
Okay, thank you.